What would you say is a player comparison for little Garrett?
Go to the left hard because everyone expects all these kids to go to the right.
At what point did you kind of turn your career to focus more towards football?
Everything revolves around sports, essentially.
What advice would you have for players that are in that similar situation?
I should have transitioned to playing outside earlier.
How your mindset was during that whole year? Was it difficult for you to just put your head down and keep working knowing you weren't going to play? Welcome to Behind the Grind, a series that looks to uncover the stories behind some of the elite athletes, business leaders, and coaches, hoping to learn from their experiences and their mindset. I am your host, Will Hankey, and today we have a very special guest, a close friend and as well as a mentor of mine. This Elder High School alum spent 5 years at Louisville, spent his first year redshirting and then 4 years as a starter, led to him being selected 28th overall in the 2009 NFL Draft by the Buffalo Bills. And then after his highly decorated 9-year NFL career, he's recently gone into broadcasting, working for the Bills radio as well as the ACC network, and hosting his own podcast centered on Buffalo and What's Next with Eric Wood. Off the field and outside of broadcasting, he's an outstanding husband to his wife, Leslie, and a great father to his 2 kids, Grace and Garrett. From Cincinnati, Ohio, please give a warm welcome to Eric Wood.
Love it. Great intro, brother. Yeah, I need to have you start coming with me to speaking gigs and whatnot.
Yeah, I do my best. I just want to, before we get into things, Grace and Garrett, how's Garrett doing right now? I know you had a basketball career growing up, and I want to ask about Garrett's basketball career. I know he's in season right now.
Yep.
What would you say is a player comparison for little Garrett?
A player comparison? I mean, he thinks he's Steph Curry at times, and he's not. He's closer to like I don't even want to say Jokic because he's not putting up triple doubles each night, but he's a big dude, and you could probably relate to this. Like, he's kind of at that spot right now where he's always been the tallest, so you don't have to be that aggressive, and if you are, you're going to knock over your buddies, and then you start playing up and playing against better competition, then you realize, oh, everyone's big, I can be, and I need to be aggressive. So he's learning the aggressive side now, loves to shoot and pick and pop, and I'm sitting there going, rebound, get under the hoop. Like, you're going to get more points rebounding and being under the hoop than you are outside. But he loves it, and it's one of those things where it's like it's hard to put yourself back into a second grader's shoes and, like, remember that, like, you weren't that dominant at that age or that aggressive or, it's just hard to, like, go all the way back and think of where you were at that time to kind of coach him up. But he has fun with it, and I try not to meddle too much, but we have fun with it.
Oh yeah, he's got that left. He's a lefty.
He's a lefty, like me, and that's what I'm telling him all the time. I'm like, go to the left hard because everyone expects all these kids to go to the right. So you got that built-in advantage.
Absolutely. So we're going to start with, ironically, the Eric Would You Rather question. Your career in the NFL lasted 9 seasons, and you grew up as a dual sport athlete playing basketball and football. So I'd like to know, if you could start over, would you rather have had a 5-year stint in the NBA or added another 5 years onto your NFL career? So we're talking 15-year NFL career, 5-year NBA career.
Which would have likely meant I played college basketball too, which would have been a blast. I'll say add 5 onto my NFL career because that would have meant I would have been playing with Josh Allen, enjoyed all of this success. But man, it would be awesome, and I probably would feel a lot better, less concussions and whatnot playing it in the NBA. So that would have been sweet. Fun fact about my not so illustrious basketball career: I was cut from our freshman basketball team at Elder. Do you know who the head coach was?
I believe it was my head coach, Pat Kelsey.
Yes, he cut me my freshman year, and I didn't deserve to be on the team. I went into high school one of the best big men in the Catholic League on the west side of Cincinnati. Little did I know, there was a lot more talent in Cincinnati coming into Elder that weren't 5'11", 155, 160 pounds. These dudes were grown men, and I should have transitioned to playing outside earlier, growing up, thinking, okay, I'll just go be a big man at Elder. I ended up being a captain on the JV team and starting on varsity and all that, but it was very humbling when Pat gave me that news because Pat's mom and dad used to drive my grandma to church every weekend.
Oh, my goodness.
For the last 40 years of her life, Pat's parents drove her to church on the weekend. So it was maybe not as difficult as I make it seem to cut me from that. But, you got a family friend and all that.
Yeah, put that fire in you, though. Getting cut from the freshman team. Michael Jordan got cut from one of his high school teams, too. So
So the story on that is, I believe Michael Jordan he didn't make varsity as a freshman. Like, he played JV as a freshman.
Okay.
So he technically got cut.
Little different circumstances.
Yeah. He got cut from the varsity team as a freshman, not getting cut from the freshman team as a freshman.
Okay. Little different there, but kind of same. Well,
he loves talking about it. He loves saying he got cut in high school, but he simply just didn't start as a freshman on varsity.
Fair enough. In spirit of learning from experts, I'd like to introduce Bobby Blakely, Tim Clark, and Kyle Whitlock of Commonwealth Capital Mortgage. This group of expert officials has nearly 20 years of experience helping customers in Kentucky, Indiana, and Florida. Named to the top 20 purchase loan officers in Kentucky, and with an office located in Middletown, Commonwealth Capital is big enough to meet your needs, but small enough to know your name. Apply today for trusted, personalized help at ccmtg.net. So starting, growing up in Cincinnati, you keep your Cincinnati roots very strong. Can you just kind of talk about, growing up in Cincinnati and your childhood, your family, and just how it kind of shaped who you are?
Yeah, for sure. West side of Cincinnati is a blue collar town, so you learn a work ethic early on. Everything revolves around sports, essentially. It's weekends are all kids sports. You're going to an Elder game on Friday night, whether that's football or basketball, the Bengals, the Reds. It's like everything in my life centered around sports, which was great. It kept you out of trouble, and it was a fairly simple life over on the West Side. So kind of similar to how we want to raise our kids. Like, we're going to work hard. We're going to be in activities. We're not going to be lazy and sit around the house. And so, and I think that set the foundation for, you go to high school games on the weekends. Well, I want to be out there, and you watch these guys playing at UC. I grew up a big basketball fan. I'm watching Kenya Martin and these guys for UC. Like, one day I want to be out there. Obviously, I ended up on a football field, not a basketball court, but it gives you that inspiration and that drive to want to be there.
And I want to talk a little bit more about you being a dual sport athlete growing up, being at Elder High School, a very, very competitive environment. There are several notable alumni, famous athletes that have went to Elder, Kyle Rudolph being one of them. So at what point did you kind of turn your career to focus more towards football?
Yeah, my junior year, funny enough, how many times Pat's getting worked into this conversation, but my junior year, I go down to Wake Forest invite-only camp. They were preseason #1 in the country. Chris Paul's coming in. Now, I only got invited because Pat went to Elder. He was friends with our coaches. So me and Thomas Sander, who ended up being a groom, he ended up playing at Davidson, was one of Steph Curry's groomsmen in his wedding. They're still friends to this day. But me and Thomas go down there, and I think I have a really good day, like competing against some of the top talent that they brought in. And I have about as good of a day as I possibly can. Skip Prosser pulls me aside at the end, and he was like, grab a pizza, come over here, let's talk. And I'm thinking, I wasn't arrogant enough to think I was getting a scholarship, but maybe a preferred walk-on, like what you did at U of L. Like, how cool would that be? This is the #1 team in the country. Absolutely. I know Pat. Chris Mack was down there. There's a bunch of Cincinnati ties, and that's why I was there, because they were hooking me up. And he said, man, I think you should play football. I think you could be a heck of a football player. You're so aggressive. You're big. Your shoulders are wide, this and that. And I'm like, well, this is after my junior year. I didn't even start on the football team. I was a rotational tight end my junior year. And I was like, well, that's not good news, because I didn't even start in football. So that's not great. And then I ended up completely going all in, put on 50 pounds between my junior and senior year, and going all in, moved from tight end to offensive line. And Jeff Brom actually had given me some of that direction, because he was recruiting some other guys in my high school. And so he had told me, I think you should play offensive line your senior year. I did. And then they ended up offering me my only scholarship. And
I know I've heard the story once or twice about Brom offering you that scholarship. Can you just kind of give the context where he kind of offered you and you earned that opportunity?
Yeah, St. Henry basketball gym. So it's after, like God's grace is all over my story of how I got to where I am now. And, just God winks everywhere, which is one of my favorite books. But so playing in a basketball game after the football season. So nowadays there wouldn't even be scholarships available. They would have a full commitment class. They had some scholarships left. They come watch me play a basketball game in Northern Kentucky. And I'd tell my coach before the game, like, don't take me out. I'm going to look tired because I'm going to give it all I got out there, but do not take me out unless I need it. And I'll let you know. but I got to try and earn a scholarship tonight. He's like, well, who's here? I'm like, Louisville's football coach. He's like, okay, let's get this. So after the game, Coach Petrino comes in the locker room. He was with our offensive line coach and tight ends coach. Coach Summers and Coach Nord came with him, and they offered me a scholarship after the game. I looked at my dad, and I'm like, I'm just going to commit. I don't have any other options. My dad's like, you've never even been to Louisville. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I got a Division I football offer here. This is much better than anything else I've gotten offered. And so I ended up not committing on the spot. Took an official visit that weekend, committed while I was down there. And then little did I know that Brian Brom, who was on our recruiting visit, he was going to be a second-round draft pick. Gary Barnage, tight end, plays 10 years in the NFL. Breno Giacomini plays 10 years in the NFL as an O-lineman. Mario Uridia has an awesome career. I mean, we had so many guys on that visit go on to play in the NFL, and a big reason why we had so much success while I was at U of L.
Yeah, that's a crazy story, getting the scholarship offer from your basketball career.
Yep.
And just kind of how things fall into place for you and you're working hard.
Yep, no doubt.
And so when you got to Louisville your first year, you redshirted your freshman year. And that's not super uncommon necessarily in football per se. But could you just kind of talk about how your mindset was during that whole year? Was it difficult for you to just put your head down and keep working knowing you weren't going to play?
No, and to your point, like, it's getting less common to redshirt now, but at that time, almost all O-linemen that came into college redshirted. You're just not physically ready. It's hard to be physically ready to start as a freshman or play as a freshman on the offensive line. You just got to be so big. There's so much communication that happens, and you're literally one missed assignment away from your quarterback, losing your quarterback for the season. And so you got to be really careful about playing young guys on the offensive line. And so I traveled with the team the whole year, and I was an emergency tackle, but luckily nobody got hurt, so I didn't have to go in and play that season. And so ended up redshirting that year. And then and I played tackle at that time. And then in the spring, they moved me to guard. I ended up getting mono. It's amazing how you can, have a little too much fun your freshman year and you get mono. And so I get mono, and then I have to miss most of spring ball. I lose 30 pounds.
Wow.
Well, I stayed in town that summer. We used to be able to go home for the month of May. Well, I stayed and worked out with the trainers. They taught me how to grocery shop, how to eat healthy, and talk about another blessing. I built that weight on so much better. I had put on 100 pounds in about 19 months. And so to be able to put on good weight now, so mono kind of stripped away some of the baby fat. I'm still fat, and I was still fat, but I was less fat afterwards and leaner, being able to put it on the right way. And then Coach Petrino during training camp, we had moved our All-American guard, Jason Spitz, to the center. He says to me, hey, can you snap a football? I said, I never have, but I'll learn. He's like, I want Spitz back at guard. You go to center. And so he took me into the indoor complex, taught me how to snap a football. And to this day, if someone asks me how to snap a football, I say, shoot it like a dart, find the same spot in your leg to hit your forearm every time. That's all Coach Petrino told me. He berated me anytime it didn't hit him in the belt buckle. And from that moment on, that's how I moved to center, and to this day, I could still hit you in the belly button or the sternum, wherever the quarterback wants it, based upon how Petrino taught me to snap a football.
I guess it's that simple if you just break it down like that.
Yeah, and then it's like anything in life. Would I have loved to have been a 4-year starter at Elder? Of course. But because I only played, 6 months of offensive line or 4 months of offensive line, I came to Louisville. I didn't have ingrained bad habits over the years. So I was like a sponge. They could just do it. I was absorbing everything. I was just learning their technique. I had no bad habits because I just needed to learn. And other guys, it was harder for them to pick up on whatever they were teaching because they had years and years of bad habits. So, just another blessing there.
Yeah, and credit to you for going about that in that way, just like a sponge, trying to take everything in with the coaches you had around you. What advice would you have for players that are in that similar situation, whether they're redshirting, whether they're walking on, like in my situation, where you're in a role that requires a lot of commitment, where you're not going to get a lot of minutes and you've just got to keep your head down and keep working?
I would say individually, give it your all. You never know when your opportunity is coming, and focus on something you're getting better at each day, each week. Live by that 1% better every single day. Find something, whether it's a training session, whether it's shooting drills, whether it's whatever you can find to get better at one thing each day, and focus in on it, lock in on it, become obsessed with trying to get better. And some days it's a rest day. Some days it's, I need to recover. Well, that's you getting better as well. And so it's just being intentional at all times. And then I would say team-wise, just focusing on how you can bring value. If you're on the bench during a game, are you stealing signals that, hey, every time they do this, this is what's coming? Or, you know, it might be encouraging someone. It might be, as a freshman walk-on, you're not going to lay into somebody generally, unless you have that true relationship, which you may. But it's, how can I bring value every day to this program? And by doing that, you're going to be a more valuable asset to the program.
Absolutely. Yeah, just finding, and you kind of have a different perspective, being able to, you know, step back and look from the outside in. How can I bring value to this team? You know, I know I'm not playing this year, but moving forward, what does this team not have that I can add next year?
Absolutely.
And after that year of redshirting, you went on to start 49 consecutive games. You know, you had multiple all-conference selections and helped lead that 2006 team to an Orange Bowl. In 2019, you were inducted to the University of Louisville Athletics Hall of Fame. And just having that path of starting as a redshirt and having 4 great years at the school, what did it mean to you to earn that honor, seeing where you had started from?
Yeah, it was a tremendous honor. And I'll be honest, that's one of the most proud moments of myself athletically that I've been, was getting into the UFL Hall of Fame. And I said during my speech that night, which the post-game party was at your house, so you all hosted that. But during that night when I gave the speech, I said, when I got to campus, I had one scholarship offer. There was no, let's see if this works out, I'm going to transfer, this and that. There is no other options. So I wanted to make sure U of L got a great return on their investment. They believed in me, and I wanted to give it my all. And I said, hopefully this is a sign that it all worked out. But just, I mean, I remember looking up in the stadium and seeing the names that are on the stadium and people that were in the U of L Hall of Fame. I got inducted with Francisco Garcia, who I grew up watching. I say grew up, he's not that much older than me, but I remember watching him play basketball and being like, man, this dude's unreal. And then we ended up being in the same class. And so it was a tremendous honor.
And it sounds like coming in with that kind of sense of desperation. Like you said, you only had one scholarship offer and you wanted to make sure that they were getting everything out. You gave them everything that you could give them, and you went in with a mentality of, what can I give to this program, as opposed to what can I get from this program? And that obviously had a huge part in leading to you being selected in the NFL draft. Your career at Louisville propelled you to being a first-round pick. So just going from a 2-star high school recruit, how did it feel that moment on draft night when you heard your name called?
It was awesome. It was truly awesome. I talked earlier about being obsessed with getting better each day, and during college, I was obsessed with becoming a first-round draft pick. I remember, and he just passed recently, Nick Mangold, who was a longtime center for the Jets. He played at Ohio State, grew up in Ohio. I remember watching him get drafted in the first round 2 years before me. I didn't realize centers could get drafted that early, because there was a long stretch of centers not getting drafted in the first round. Jeff Fain went from Notre Dame to the Saints and didn't have a good career, and everyone thought, maybe centers don't need to be drafted in the first round. We can find a smart dude that kind of just runs the line, makes all the calls in the middle. We can find those guys anywhere. And so when Mangold got drafted in the first round, that started a new trend of, because he was dominant, of first round interior linemen. And so I became obsessed with it, and I ate, slept, breathed football, and I went all in. And for it to work out like that was absolutely incredible. It's a whirlwind. I mean, you're getting, night before the draft, the Steelers tell me we're going to take you at 32 if you're still there. So you don't know if you fully believe that. And then my agents tell me, well, New England, they have the 20-something pick. They said they want you. Well, then they trade back. The Bills end up taking me. So it's kind of a whirlwind how it all works out. But and then the Bills had not had a whole lot of success there. But you're just so incredibly grateful for the opportunity. And then you get up there, you meet the guys, you meet the organization. You're like, okay, this is the right spot for me.
And you mentioned the transition from high school to college and how it's hard to be physically ready right when you get there. And then that's the same case, obviously, when you go from the college to the professional level. So what were your kind of initial impressions getting to that first training camp? And I know the rookies arrived prior to all the returning players, but just initial impressions of making the jump to that next level and kind of seeing what you needed to improve on to impact.
Yeah, I would say it was more mental and technique-wise than it was physical. Like coming out, as a 23-year-old. I was ready to roll physically,
Mm-hmm.
but mentally, when every play you're going against someone good, there's no nights off in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You play against the worst team in the league, they still have NFL ball players. They're defensive tackles, they're DNs. They're the best at what they do in the world. They're one of 32 teams, 2 D tackles starting per team generally. They're the best in the world every single week. And so you have to mentally be so locked in every play or else you will get embarrassed. And that was back when first rounders all held out on training camp because you couldn't even get signed because it was kind of a slotting process. 32nd guy gets signed all the way down to 1. And so I miss a week of training camp. I show up. First night, I get there. It's a night practice. End up getting in a fight that night with a dude who from the spring, we had some bad blood, but it's not padded, so they didn't want you to get in a fight. So I fight him the first night I get there. 3 or 4 days later, we're playing in a preseason game in Canton, Ohio, in the Hall of Fame game where I played both my state championship games in high school, which was really cool to go back there and play my first preseason game in the NFL there. And they had moved some defensive end to D tackle because they weren't playing their starters. And I remember going against this dude. I had no idea who he was. I'm like, oh, okay. And you're not really prepped film-wise. You're like, kind of just go out there, get your feet wet. And I got embarrassed one of the first plays of the game on a pass rush move where I couldn't even describe to the coaches on the sideline what happened. I'm like, I think he made an inside move, then he swam back out to my right, and I thought I had him, and then all of a sudden he's hitting the quarterback.
Yeah.
And it just was a wake-up call like, okay, these guys are really good, and you better be prepped for every time you get out on the field.
Absolutely. A little bit humbling, but just gives you another reason to want to improve and tells you the things that you need to improve.
So then we throw an interception. A few plays later, we throw an interception. I'm chasing this interception like a madman. I get completely laid out, which was a lesson learned. Welcome to the NFL, rookie. Don't chase interceptions blindly because you're going to get absolutely crushed. Helmet flies off. My shoe had already fallen off on the play as I was running. So I go to the sideline. I'm holding my shoe and my helmet, probably concussed. And I walked over like cracking up laughing like, I will never do that again.
Yeah, you learned your lesson. That's really. Do you remember who it was that laid you out?
I don't. We were playing against the Titans. I don't remember who it was. They didn't play most of their starters, so heck, it might have even been a dude who didn't make the team, but he got me.
Fair enough. And then, after you got to Buffalo, that really just became another second home for you. I want to know, outside from Bills Mafia and the amazing fan base that it is, what's your favorite part about the city of Buffalo?
It kind of goes along with the fan base, but I would say the people. We have some great relationships still to this day. Restaurant owners, friends of the community, people that I work with within the organization now. And it's like anything in life. It's like you look back on it, and it's the relationships that create most of the memories. And so calling the games on the radio now, I'm still at all the home games and away games. And so being able to be up in Buffalo, no offense to Buffalo, absolutely love it up there. The winters are too long for me. I like to be outside, like to play golf too much and all that. And, friends and family are in Louisville, but it's awesome to go up there and visit.
Mm-hmm. And you spend a lot of time up there now, obviously, doing the Bills radio, and you keep those connections really strong, and you've built some great relationships there. Who are some of your teammates during your playing career, or even coaches with whom you still stay in close contact with?
Yeah, a bunch. I mean, my last head coach was Sean McDermott, and so he's still with the team. Mm-hmm. Brandon Beans, GM. I was the first contract he ever gave out as a GM.
Wow.
And so we stay in touch to this day. Ryan Fitzpatrick remains a close friend. Offensive lineman buddies. Our long snapper at the time, Garrison Sanborn. He lives down in Jacksonville. Talked to him last week. On my way over here, talked to Kyle Orton, one of our old quarterbacks who played in Denver, because I'm looking for tickets for somebody for this weekend. So it's amazing. And I haven't talked to Kyle on the phone in probably a year and a half, but you pick up when you go to battle with someone, we're at the facility 60 hours a week or whatever it is. You spend that much time with somebody. You don't need to talk every day to be able to pick up where you left off.
Absolutely. And I still kind of have that with my basketball career. And when we have other athletes on the show, they always talk about that. Just the strong relationships you build, whether it's through the sweat equity, just working with these guys every day and just fighting through adversity with people, just really brings you super close together.
Yep.
And one of the highlights of your career was your 2015 Pro Bowl selection. Could you just kind of talk about the experience of being able to play in the Pro Bowl with all the other best players in the world and what that meant to you?
Yeah, it was awesome. And I had been an alternate before and never got in. And there were seasons where if you end the season on IR, you can't go to the Pro Bowl. So I had 2 seasons that I ended on IR that maybe I could have made it as an alternate. But to be able to finally make it in 2015 was awesome. I mean, as an offensive lineman, we don't get stats. So it's like, unless you make a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro team, it's hard to validate your on-field success. And, you earn respect around the league, you earn respect in your locker room, but to go to the Pro Bowl was a ton of fun. It was the last one out in Hawaii. I brought 14 people with me. Grace was 6 months old. We flew her out to Hawaii for it, and we partied for 1 week straight. We celebrated it. And, everyone knocks on the Pro Bowl, and now it's a flag football game and all that, and everyone says, the Pro Bowl sucks, this and that. I'm like, well, one, it outdraws on a TV audience some World Series games, some NBA Finals games. So it can't suck that bad if the ratings are that high. I understand the NFL is just a different animal when it comes to TV ratings, but people are watching, one. Two, it's too violent of a game to just have an all-star game.
Absolutely.
It's just too violent. I mean, Tyler Eifert broke his foot in the Pro Bowl and missed part of the next season. You don't want that to happen to anybody. But
especially considering these are every team's best players.
No doubt. And so they give a car, I think it was a Yukon Denali that year. They give a Denali to the offensive player of the game and the defensive player of the game. So we'll be asking people throughout the week, are you going to try and go win that car? And for the defense, for the NFC, who was it? Michael Bennett, one of the defensive linemen, he wanted to get the car. So we're like, all right, you have to play defensive end. And we had Kyle Long, who was a rookie. We put him at left tackle. We're like, you guys go at it, and the rest of us are going to chill. So they went at it you play every other quarter. So for 2 quarters of the game, they literally went at it.
Wow.
And no one else had to do anything. I would literally tell the defensive tackle, I'd say, hey, we're running the ball. I'm coming towards you.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we're passing. Don't, you need to come off the ball or else you're just going to be sitting there. So we were that's literally what you're doing during the game. You get paid double if you win, but that 28 grand or whatever was not worth the risk of getting hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And another very notable moment of recognition in your career, you were a 2-time nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, which is an award that honors just commitment to philanthropy and service to your community. Ironically enough, while I was doing my research, Johnny Unitas was the first recipient of that award in 1970. And so just with how you were able to connect with the community of Buffalo, what did that honor mean to you?
It meant a lot because early in my career, I looked up to all those Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees. Those were, when I was younger, I'd look around the locker room and whoever got that, because it's voted on by your teammates and coaches for on and off field excellence. I'm like, that's the dude. Fred Jackson, our best player on our team likely, and a great dude. He's an awesome husband, dad, does a bunch of the community. That's the guy. I want to be like that. And so to get that recognition from my teammates was absolutely incredible. We started the Eric Wood Foundation that's now become the Evan Wood Fund, named after my little brother who passed when he was 11. And it's still rolling to this day. We, provide financial support and experiences for any family that has a child at the Children's Hospital up there. So there could be disabilities, illness, whatever's going on in their life. And so we bring them out to games to go to a Bills game in a suite that they can come to. We, pay for Christmas for them. It's grocery money. It's babysitting money in the form of gift cards because we can't just hand out cash generally. But it's been really special. But I say all that, I got the recognition, but I'd have for our Christmas program, so many of my teammates would come out and support. So it's it was a collaborative deal.
Yeah, that's just a testament to who you are as a person. You earning the nominee for that award, and obviously you put in a lot of work to earn that and everything you've given to that community. Following your career, January 2018, the postseason physical revealed your damaged disc in your neck that was close to your vertebrae, correct?
It was disc and bone sitting into the spinal cord.
Yeah, in the spinal cord. Could you just kind of talk about what was going through your head as you discovered that and what it, when you realized what it meant for your career?
It was tough. I mean, I'll be honest. I had signed a contract extension before the season to stay with the Bills with the assumption that we're going to draft a quarterback in the next draft. You're going to be the veteran center. I played every single snap that season, which is pretty rare in the NFL. I think there was 3 guys in the NFL that did it that season. I was one of the 3 because, your shoe could fall off and you miss a snap, much less you get hurt. You could be winning by too much. You could be losing by too much where you take the starters out. It just worked out perfectly where I played every single snap, including the playoff game where we broke the longest playoff drought in all of professional sports. So
Heck yeah.
everything's great. My son's about to be born. We lose the playoff game, but I get to go back to Louisville and see my son get born. And at the exit physical, they checked out my neck, which I had a bunch of stingers throughout the season. And they were like, and I'm telling them, like, my high school buddy's got stingers. Like, who cares? And it revealed a career-ending injury, which, you know, looking back, I would have played till the wheels fell off. When you said, would you rather play 5 more years? Like, I would have loved to. I'd hate to know what my body would feel like now if I played 5 more, because each year comes with a ton of wear and tear on the body. But it was obviously difficult, and it's difficult on everybody. Like, it changes everybody's life. We were worried about how we were going to get a 2-week-old to the Pro Bowl, and instead I have to break the news to my parents and everybody that we're not only not going to the Pro Bowl, I'm never playing a football game again.
And you're a man of strong faith. You know, you're involved here locally at Southeast Christian Church and a couple other parishes around the area. Could you talk about how your faith helped you through that time, and then also how that adversity strengthened your faith?
Yeah, so I had got baptized in 2012 and got introduced to real Christianity at the University of Louisville through our FCA program, which is absolutely incredible and still supported to this day. And the Morgans who run it, Chris and Tammy, do such a good job. But that's where I was introduced that this isn't just a bunch of rules and whatnot, because I grew up Catholic, but it's not just rules. This is a relationship you can have with God. And so that foundation in my faith served me so incredibly well throughout my career, where I had a foundation of an identity outside of ball, which having that foundation helped me transition out of the NFL and not truly hit rock bottom in those moments, because I believed that God had a plan for me. I believed that God was working for the good in this situation. And, you know, James 1, where it says, consider it pure joy when you go through adversity in troubles and trials. And to be able to lock in on those and gain some perspective truly helped me in those moments, and serves me and serves my family to this day.
Absolutely. And staying on the topic of your faith, as you transition from football into now, you know, with your broadcasting, your podcast, how did your faith help you keep perspective as you transitioned out of football?
Yeah, I think just going back to like Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper and not harm you, and just locking in on those truths allowed me to realize, like, I have a lot to give still, and I can bring value places, and, you know, this isn't the end of the road. And how do I take this adversity and run in a positive direction to maybe lift someone up? Maybe one day my kids will face adversity and I can say, hey, this is how I transitioned at this time. And so all that being said, you know, the faith is there for all of it, and trying to work now where it's not like a compartmentalized faith. It's just who I am and what I do. And every moment it's, how can I bring value here? How can I lift someone up? How can I bring value, serve others, and try to carry that mindset with me daily?
I think that's such a great message for young athletes to hear, to face adversity and look at it and think, like, how can I use this to grow? How can what can I learn from this that will better me in the future as I progress? Whatever it is, you know, you go into the professional world, you're starting a family, there's just always going to be times where you face adversity, and you have to look at it as an opportunity to grow, because you can't grow if you're comfortable.
It's so much easier to learn after losses, you know, whether that's a loss in sports or a loss in business, whatever it may be. It's easier to learn in those moments. After a win in any area of life, there's a lot to be learned still. It's just harder to learn in those moments because you're riding high and you feel like you're comfortable, as you just said. And so it's in those moments of being uncomfortable that you can learn a lot about yourself.
And through your faith, you obviously were able to successfully transition into your broadcasting with Bills Radio and with the ACC network. Was that something you always kind of saw yourself? Did you think you were always going to get into something like that, or just how did that opportunity come about for you?
I've always been pretty comfortable around a microphone. And then when my career ended, I had a number of guys reach out to me that were in the sports media world that said, hey, if you want to get in, I'll help you out. I can help you find an agent. I can help you get an opportunity, but I wouldn't wait too long. Like, just realistically, you were an offensive lineman that played in the first or second smallest market in the league, that you weren't winning. And so if you're going to get in, you probably need to go now. And so, guys like Kirk Herbstreit and Michael Silver, who was a writer, and Albert Breer, Jeff Arlington, all these guys that were at ESPN in different spots offered to help me out in that transition, which is something I try and do now for guys like, hey, how can I help you out? Because someone did that for me. And so my first year out, I called one game for Fox, which was on Thanksgiving weekend. No one wanted to work. And so I got to call a top 25 matchup between Iowa State and Kansas State. Funny enough, Brock Purdy was the quarterback at Iowa State. And so got to call one game that year, which gave me some film and some tape. And I did a couple pregame shows that year. And then that following year, auditioned for a full-time gig at Fox and ESPN ended up hiring me. And I did mainly ACC network games for them over the next couple years. And then at that same time, the Bills offered me a job, which I didn't really plan on doing both immediately. But those NFL radio gigs, people sit in those gigs forever because they're fun. And you're covering the same team every week and you're around. And it's not that difficult because you at least know one of the teams every single week. And so I felt like I had to take it or else I was going to miss out on an opportunity that might not come available for another 20 years or so. And so I took both, decided I'll go all in and do both for 2 years, figure out which I like better and which direction I wanted to go, and ultimately settled on the Bills gig.
Yeah, and that's worked out for you. And I know you've had a lot of fun doing that in these last couple of years. With how the Bills have become a great team these last couple of years, obviously it's always been a great organization, but what has been the most memorable game that you've been on the call for, just your favorite one that you've had the opportunity to call?
In 2020, we played New England at home at the first round of the playoffs, and New England owned the division forever, and this was kind of the turning of the tide. Josh Allen played the perfect game. We scored on 7 straight possessions to start the game. It was absolutely freezing cold, night game in Buffalo in the playoffs. First time hosting a playoff game in probably 20 years or so. And that night, I won't forget. I mean, it was so much fun. I had a group of guys in town. We had an absolute ball with that one. That one's extremely memorable. And then the 13-second game against Kansas City where they ended up winning, but that one's hard to forget.
Yeah, I can imagine. And aside from your broadcasting and your calling games, you got into the podcast world around that same time, starting with your What's Next with Eric Wood podcast. I've watched several episodes. You've had numerous notable guests, whether it be Jeff Brom, whether it be Al Snow, a former WWE wrestler. Why should listeners tune into some of What's Next with Eric Wood?
So I haven't done that one in a while. There's over 200 episodes, but to me, I wanted to do 2 things. One, I wanted to learn the other side of the mic. So as an athlete, we're always the one getting asked questions, and to be the true host, you have to learn the other side of the mic, which is what you're learning. We talked about this prior to you starting this. And then I also, as I was transitioning career-wise, I want to learn from people and pick their brain. Well, what better way to learn from somebody than to get an uninterrupted hour of their time where I get to cherry pick the conversation? And so everybody from pastors to athletes to coaches to businessmen and women across the board, a bunch of executive coaches, motivational speakers, and all that. I got to pick their brains for 3 years and over 200 interviews. And for me, I just learned so much through that process, and it helped shape the trajectory of my transition.
Yeah, and I have a great idea of what you're able to learn through that, obviously, with starting this, and you've been such a great help to me. But yeah, just being on the other side of the mic is very, very different, and kind of having the opportunity to guide these conversations. And like you said, learn from these people. I'm having the same opportunities where I'm sitting down with somebody like yourself, athletes, business professionals, coaches, and just learning from their stories, and you getting to guide that conversation. You just learn a lot in doing that.
Yeah, and I got really lucky too in the fact that when COVID happened, all these speakers, these media personalities, well, they're all at home now, and they have a lot more time than they used to. And so to be able to get their time was a lot easier during COVID. And then the technology to be able to record those podcasts virtually made it really awesome that I had the opportunity. I mean, I was the biggest fan of the Ed Milet podcast. And then to be able to get him on, well, he was supposed to be on the road speaking. Instead, he's got time to do a podcast because of COVID. So finding the finding the blessing within the craziness of COVID there.
Yeah, you took full advantage of that opportunity. Absolutely. And with the What's Next with Eric Wood podcast, you published a book in 2022 called Tackle What's Next. And I'd just like to know, the purpose of that book and why readers should be interested. What can they get out of reading your book?
Yeah, so it's essentially my story, but then life lessons that came from the podcast. So I felt like there was so much valuable information in the podcast, and publishing company essentially told me that, like, hey, through your podcast, you essentially have a book here. And so I worked with a ghostwriter to kind of fill in the gaps, but they had kind of come up with a blueprint per se to where, hey, here's the top lessons. We can supplement it with your story, but it's going to be a lot of your podcast guests giving their advice. Because, I mean, as a, early 30-year-old guy, like, who wants to learn from me? But hey, you have these rock stars out there that you can learn from here, the John Gordons, the Elliottes, the Junior Bridgmans, the Dave Stone and Bob Russells of the world. You can learn a lot from these guys. And so if you ever want to feel like if you ever want to feel some true imposter syndrome, go to write a book, because you're just sitting there like, why would anybody want to learn from me? And then it takes the publisher and the ghostwriter to say, like, a lot of people would want to hear your story. And, sales were fine and they did well. And to this day, people will still come up to me randomly. Hey, this is 4 years later. Oh, I just read your book. I was going through a transition career-wise or whatever it may be. And so I would say if you're going through a career transition, a life transition, a loss of a loved one, a divorce, whatever it may be, the book can bring you some value. And it's not just my insights. It's mainly other people's insights that I had the value of hearing through the podcast.
Yeah, that's a super humble perspective to kind of go about it with. And that's part of with this podcast. I'm a freshman walk-on. I'm a college athlete. I've got some things that I can share, but ultimately enabling people to hear advice from somebody like yourself and some of the other guests we've been able to have is just a unique opportunity for yourself. Really, you learn a lot from these people and you get to apply it in your own way, and putting it into a book absolutely brings it all together.
For sure.
And then, now focusing more on your Centered on Buffalo podcast, could you just talk about just being a leading voice within Bills Mafia, several years out of your playing career, and how it helps you stay connected with the players and with the community in Buffalo?
Yeah, it definitely helps me keep relationships with some of these guys that I don't see them on a day-to-day basis at the facility. So I get to pick their brains a little bit, get to know them, and then I see them at a team meal before a game and whatnot, and I'll have a little bit of a relationship with some of these guys, continue to have relationships with these coaches and front office individuals, and then I just feel like at times I can provide a calming voice to the Bills Mafia. Like, hey, this team's good. The sky's not falling. They'll be all right. And here they sit in the divisional round coming up against the Broncos. And, it'll be a tough matchup this weekend. But when the Bills lost 2 in a row earlier in the season, they get smoked at Atlanta, who's not very good. They get smoked at Miami. I'm like, look, those happen. It's okay. And we'll be fine. We got Josh Allen. We have a solid team. Injuries have really hurt this team this year, but they'll be okay. And so it's fun to do. I have a lot of fun with it. I'm recording with Mina Kimes later today from ESPN, who's, I think she's awesome. Ivy League grad, catches a lot of crap because obviously she didn't play football, but she could talk football circles around so many people that did play football. And so, and then also, media members to be able to connect with them and build relationships through that podcast as well.
And out of season, what are some of the contents of the podcast versus in the season where you're focusing on, the week by week Buffalo Bills schedule? What are some of the things that you get to tap into outside of the season?
Yeah, that's a better time to do player interviews and kind of get to know them, see what they're up to in the offseason, how they train, mindset stuff and all that. Like, you can really dig in with the players better in the offseason. And then, look, I mean, the NFL is a beast right now. They've essentially taken over the entire calendar year. You go from the Super Bowl, well, look, 3 weeks later, we have the NFL Combine, so it's lead up to that. And then it's free agency. Then it's the draft. And then some of these guys get some time off. Then it's OTAs, and there's all those reports. And then little time off in the summer, and then boom, it's training camp. So it's not that hard to fill it because, you're doing Combine coverage a couple weeks after the Super Bowl, and then it's who do the Bills going to take in free agency, and then it's who are we going to draft, and then it's how are OTAs going. And so it's not that hard to fill that offseason time. But that is truly when I like to get the players on.
And I'm sure they're a lot more, less stressed out in
No
the
doubt.
offseason. They've got more things that they can talk about during the season. It's just all football.
Yeah, you got it. Like the first few weeks after the season, they don't want to do any Bills talk. Like they want to go travel and get their R&R. So it's kind of finding that sweet spot of like, okay, you've had some downtime. Okay, you want to talk some ball? Here we go.
Yeah. And a more recent development for you, the Louisville Kings. It was revealed in October 2025, this past couple months ago, that the city of Louisville now has a professional football team. So what does this mean for the city of Louisville, and why should Louisvillians be excited about their new team?
I think it's going to be a fun deal, and we'll see how it all shakes out with the UFL. But the NFL currently needs a minor league system. College football isn't what it was, to where the players aren't coming out as developed anymore with NIL, with transfers and all that. The college game with the spread offenses and all that, it just most of the time doesn't look a whole lot like NFL football. So you lose a lot of talent because they're not ready to roll, and then they get cut, and then they're not getting developed, and they're out of a career. And so the UFL has provided an opportunity already for a lot of these guys to get back into the NFL or get an opportunity to get there. 70 guys on NFL rosters right now came from the UFL last year.
Wow.
It's a big portion of the league. And so you see the value of it. It'll be quality football. We only have 5 home games, but it's going to be fun. We're going to make it a entertaining, fun event to go to, family friendly, so you can bring your kids out there. The stadium holds 14 or 15,000. We'd love to see it packed. And I think with Chris Redmond coaching it, he has such strong ties in the city that it should be a fun deal. And I think that if we can provide a winning product this year where the games are fun and we can get behind it, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm pretty close to the leadership within the UFL. That's part of the reason we were able to get a team here, and then part of the reason where we're playing at Lynn Family Stadium and all that. And so I'm excited for those guys. Russ Brandon, the CEO of the UFL, was our team president in Buffalo. Michael Rapoli, founder of Body Armor, Vitamin Water. He's got Noble now. He's one of the owners. The Rock's one of the owners. And then Fox Sports owns part of it as well, which helps on the TV contracts when you already have built-in TV deals.
Yeah, that's just an unbelievable opportunity for the city. I'll be out at Lynn Family Stadium to check that team out. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Before we get out of here, I'd like to do our Dash Clip Phone a Friend segment. And we've talked about this, and like we were just talking about the Louisville Kings, today we're going to be talking to
we're going to try and get Chris Redmond on the phone. We'll
fingers
see.
Crossed.
We'll see. He said as long as I don't have as long as their coaches meeting doesn't go long, then he'll be good. And so I got the pleasure of asking Chris Redmond on Christmas Eve if he would be our head coach. They thought they were going to be able to get me to be the coach, and I shot that down pretty quick. I'm not living in Dallas, so the team will practice and train out of Dallas, and then commute to games from there.
Gotcha.
Every team in the league is down in Dallas, so I wasn't willing to move my family down there or just be down there by myself. Redmond's at a different stage in life where he's got one high schooler and a college son, and so a little easier at this stage of life for Red to do it. So let's see if we can get my boy Red Dog on the phone.
What up, E-Wood?
Red Dog, I got a question for you. I'm on Will Hankey's Behind the Grind podcast right now, and we were just behind the grind. We were just talking about the Louisville Kings, and what I want to know. We had the draft yesterday. You've been building this team, building this staff. Are we going to be good?
I think we may be even better than good. I'm a very optimistic kind of guy, and I don't want to go out there and get people. I like to get people excited. That's just part of the way it is, and I feel very, very good about where we're at, just from an organization, from top to bottom, starting with yourself and starting with great people around us. That's how you build. It doesn't matter if it's a football team or if it's a business. You build great things from the top to the bottom. We've started that, and I think that's a trend that we're doing. We're getting good people, great athletes, and I think good outcomes will happen from it. Today's a big day. Yesterday was our UFL draft, which was a lot of guys that were in the UFL last year and available. And we had a top pick for for our skills position. We picked a really good receiver, and Winstead is his name, and he's going to be an incredible addition and a starter for this ball club. So I feel like we had a great start yesterday. We got some other great individuals as well, but a lot of speed on the outside, and to me, that's success. You never know what happens with injuries, but very excited about the start. We've got a long way to go, and it's going to be a lot of work, but very encouraged so far.
I love it. I love it. What do we have a quarterback yet?
We do, Jace. We got a couple of them right now. We got Jason Bean is a guy from Kansas. He's incredible athlete, potential in my mind, an MVP in this league. And he's a guy that's played with the Colts and probably should be in the NFL right now. And really, really excited to have him. He's got an explosive arm and probably even more explosive legs. So it's a guy that can take the distance from any part of the field. And then we have Chauncey Rogers as well. He's a guy from Cal that played and very similar. Great arm, fits our offense really good. That we like to do. Offense coordinator Steve Logan is an incredible coach, and we really want to get these guys an opportunity to showcase themselves so they can get to the next level.
That's awesome. So you got two good athletes like yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's just how we roll. But the MVPs in this league have been, they've all been great athletes that can run and pass, and so rather than changing up what works and what the system we want to do, and you a limited time, you know how it is with coaching, a limited time to put offenses in. This is we think a good strategy to make us successful, and you never know what you end up with, and so things can change in a heartbeat with injuries and everything else. But we feel like this is going to give us the best opportunity for success.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time for this, and I can't wait to see you soon and get out and watch them Kings.
Chris, thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Wood. Thanks, guys.
Yep. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Well, there you go.
Hey, he's ready to roll.
Yes, sir. You heard it here first. We got great people in the organization, got speed on the outside, and an MVP candidate who would be playing for the Colts if they didn't have a 44-year-old quarterback.
The 44-year-old quarterback, Daniel Jones, a number 3 draft pick that they don't play, and so we'll see. But you heard Red, and I introduced Redmond to the UFL folks, and I'm like, look, there's no skeletons in his closet. He's an awesome dude. He's been coaching in high school. Surround him with some experienced coordinators, and he'll be a great leader. These mobile quarterbacks, they better not look up Chris Redmond's rushing stats from college in the NFL, because I don't think there are any. But Redmond is a close friend of mine, a dude who I looked up to forever. I mean, I ended up signing with the same agent as him. I signed with the same financial advisor as him. Like, I wanted to be like Chris Redmond as soon as I met him. And so the opportunity to be able to introduce him to the UFL, him to get this opportunity, he's all fired up. His dad was a longtime coach here, coached at Ballard, coached at Mail, just a legend in this community. And so it's awesome to see Chris, step in and be our first head coach, which all the stuff says, welcome back, Chris Redmond, on the UFL Kings, material. I need to get them to switch that because he's been living here for 20-something years now.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, the Redmonds being a known name in the football world and the Louisville community, and obviously just hearing we got a really special thing going with him at head coach, and I'm excited to see it.
Yep, it'll be fun.
Before we get out of here, I've got one last question for you. Aside from just your football career, your broadcasting, everything you've done thus far, and everything you'll continue to do, what do you want people to remember you by? What do you want your life to be defined by when it's all said and done?
That's a great question. So my wife gave this to me as a gift, but before you leave our house, on the wall by the garage door, the door to the garage, is Proverbs 11:25, where it says, "He who refreshes others will be refreshed, and a generous person will prosper." So in our household, how we talk about that, we want to spread joy. We want to be a joyful family. We've been blessed beyond measure, so we need to live with a joy that exemplifies that, and then we want to be generous. So when it's all said and done, I want to make a positive impact everywhere I go, bring a joyful presence, have fun, and then be extremely generous. We've been, like I said, blessed beyond measure, and what are we going to do with that? And that's, obviously by donations with money economically, but then it's time, it's investing in others and being generous in that way as well.
And some of the things you've talked about on this podcast and how you give back to your community, you can really see how you're committed to others and just the way you go about life with, like you said, the joy that you carry yourself with. You've been so blessed, and looking at how to impact other people We've had some other people on the show that have just said, through everything they do, they want their lives to be defined by the impact that they had on other people, and that's what other people will really remember them by.
Yeah, at the bottom of my stationery, I like writing handwritten notes, and at the bottom of my stationery, it's a Jackie Robinson quote that says, "A life's not important except in the impact that it has on others." And I just feel like just a constant reminder of, sitting there at the bottom of my stationery, and when I generally write someone a handwritten letter, generally it's a thank you, and it's like, you've had an impact on my life.
Yeah, and that goes against human nature, in the day and how it is in our daily society. A lot of people think about, what can I get out of things? What can I do? They're just thinking about themselves and just going about life and how you can impact other people. And you also see how it comes back to you in a lot of ways.
No doubt.
Well, that is going to wrap things up for today's episode. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. I've had an unbelievable time sitting here with you and just picking your brain, learning some things from you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. Keep up the good work. I'm a big fan of the podcast. You've had some awesome guests, and can't wait to see who else you get on in the future, brothers.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your help. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode of Behind the Grind with Eric Wood. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to tune into the Shady Rays Hints of the Week, where you guys can go comment down below who you think our next guest will be. But for now, this has been Behind the Grind. I am your host, Will Hankey. Keep on grinding.